want to just welcome everyone to this latest edition of and Marketers Guild, and want to introduce Francesca. And we got introduced through a mutual friend, and was just hearing the kind of work that she was doing in the AI space, was fascinated by some of the concepts that you were talking about in terms of like this is a bi-directional conversational AI and things like that. And I just really wanted to hear more about your perspective. I thought it'd be great for this group of folks interested in it from the marketing context. And yeah, it's a pretty interactive bunch. So happy to have you present, and then of course just welcome comments, questions from the group.
Yeah, sounds great. So in terms of everyone who's here on the call, has anyone actually dabbled with conversational AI? Do you know if any of your members have and had any success? Oh, great. How is that, Karen? Before I dive in.
When you mean conversational AI, you mean things like Dialogflow?
Yes.
Yeah, I did an integration with our knowledge base at one time, built and worked with a company called, shoot, I forget. It escapes me. It was definitely interesting. I mean, it's more a top-down kind of guiding people.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with the previous version of Dialogfog. I didn't get into the CX version.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked pretty well. I mean, recognizing people's question, but it was tedious in the fact that you had to recognize every conversation and program it.
Map it out.
Map it out, exactly. Whereas now with ChatGPT, I think the combination of the two could be pretty powerful. So I haven't dabbled with that, but I have a little experience in it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for example, I think of a brand like Nike. Imagine if they created a conversational AI. You'd want that conversational AI to recommend products, to understand who the customer is, but you wouldn't want the conversational AI to start discussing the US elections or people's personal lives and collecting that information, or start to promote other brands like Adidas. So how do you allow for very human interactions, which I think we've moved from rules-based chatbots where you're phoning in and it asks you, what do you want? Do you want to press 1, 2, or 3? And then you can see this dialogue tree kind of happening, and there's a lot of friction there, to moving to this more human conversational AI using generative AI technologies. But then at the same time, you have to narrow down the scope and ensure that you're still directing it as much as possible. Has anyone else had experience with conversational AI or trying to build this for marketing purposes, for customer service, maybe internal processes like HR onboarding or user research? You can use it for so many different things for different stakeholders. It would just be great to get some more
I've been on the receiving end of being in a number of studies for open-ended conversational AI and open-ended in surveys and things like Outset, and there are a number of them now that are offering it, and to varying degrees of success, I would say. I think they lack the understanding of when you're just stopping to think about what else you're going to say versus when so it constantly sort of and it doesn't really listen to your answer well enough, so it will the next question ask you exactly what you've just said. So
that's frustrating.
I would say there was some variable degrees
maybe it's not a good listener at this stage, but I think over time this is all about AI being able to mirror human behavior. So if it can understand your tone of voice, your cadence, your turn of phrase, it can start to mirror that. But in order for AI to do that, it needs to have examples of conversations you've already had with the AI, so that every single conversation it's having is unique and personalized. Great. So I think that's a good start. So I'm going to share my presentation. So I'm talking about unified conversational AI and how it can transform customer experience with AI. So let's start now with just a future vision. This might come in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, who knows? Depends how quickly the technology evolves. So imagine Taylor Swift has done a collaboration with Good American, and they've created a new product line. And part of that deal is that they are turning Taylor Swift into an avatar. And the avatar is powered by conversational AI. So in order to do this, I'll use a technique called photogrammetry, which you can see on the left-hand side. They use high-spec cameras with different lighting conditions to create a 3D render of Taylor Swift. And they will do that for various different expressions, so that when Taylor Swift is talking, it's not uncanny valley. She is expressing all sorts of emotions and ultimately expressing her personality. Now we have Sophie, who is a 13-year-old superfan of Taylor Swift, and she is also a customer of Good American. She receives a message saying, "Would you like to speak to Taylor Swift?" And of course, she's delighted. She starts having a conversation with Taylor Swift, asking her all sorts of personal questions or questions about her upcoming tour, the meaning of her lyrics. And eventually she might ask questions about, what sort of brands do you use, Taylor Swift? Like, you know, what clothes do you like to wear? What makeup do you use? And at that point, the conversational will understand that the intent is to essentially this user, Sophie, is ready to hear about a brand and for this conversational AI to promote Good American. At that point, the conversational AI will start talking, or Taylor Swift will start talking about this amazing new collaboration, this new product line, which she can have early access to. And all she has to do is turn up in store. And not only that, when she turns up in store, she'll be able to have a photo with Taylor Swift, the digital version of Taylor Swift. So Sophie enters into the store. She gets directed to the part of the store with this new product line. She ends up purchasing these new jeans and gets the opportunity to take a picture. Not only that, she gets directed to this photogrammetry booth to create her own digital avatar. And with that, you can, she is allowed to create a photo, but also be superimposed into a music video, which you can share on social media. And this isn't the end of the experience. Obviously, Sophie will go away and she'll continue to have conversations with Taylor Swift, who will answer questions both about Taylor Swift and upcoming tours, but simultaneously about Good American and the new products coming down the track, events that are happening in store to get people to purchase online, but also come in store and enjoy that experience. So this is an example of conversational AI combined with avatars. The sorts of things that people were talking about during COVID-19 when we're all crazy about the metaverse and moving into the metaverse. And we haven't done that yet, but certainly there's a lot that can be done with these avatars and voice and so on and so forth. A little bit about me. So I've been working in technology for about 15 years now. Always been attracted to working in startups, went to the same school as Richard Branson. So that was the start of my kind of entrepreneurial journey. Here is one of the first products that I built, which was a social network. We started with creating a social network called Uni, which was a UK version of Facebook. And then as a lot of these social networks went from web-based platforms to mobile, we focused on a mobile messaging app, which is more of a dating app called Fling. And here you can see the user interaction where people could create a message and send it to people all around the world. Obviously, when it comes to dating, you need to, location is an important factor, but there was all sorts of conversations happening on the app. More recently, last year, I held the very first Generative AI conference in London in partnership with Informa and AI Summit. So you can see that here. I'll just pause it there. So this conference was focused on how generative AI was impacting all of the creative industries, from music to fashion to architecture to brands, marketing, etc. And then day 2 of the conference, I looked at the ethical implications. So issues around intellectual property for brands, name, image, and likeness for celebrities, looked at deep fakes, hallucinations with large language models, etc., etc., bias, and these sorts of issues. And part of that, I also created one of the first generative AI music videos. So we used generative AI to create music, to create lyrics, to create the melody, and then use motion capture to create the music video. It's not the best music video in the world, but it was a lot of fun putting it together.
Just curious, where did you go for like the motion capture? Like, do you have access to a studio or?
Yeah, so this was a kind of fully fledged, it was a university in the south of England, and they had spent about $1 million on all sorts of like mocap, virtual production, setups and everything. And I have some experience in motion capture with Move AI, so I already had those connections.
Very cool.
People can come together with the latest technology and explore its uses for content. How do you see the media industry?
Great. So back to conversational AI. So conversational AI can be used and has been used a lot for customer service. It's excellent at dealing with those really easy questions, and then the harder queries can then be passed on to agents. Plus, AI can deal with customer service complaints 24/7. It can deal with issues in multiple different languages as well. So as a company is scaling and the number of customer support questions starts to ramp up, that's where conversational AI can really come in. For sales, you can do things like lead qualification, upselling, cross-selling, and figuring out based on previous orders what to recommend to customers, and to try and get as much information from customers as possible, and then also gathering that basic information to then pass it on to a sales agent so that they are fully prepped before speaking to someone. So you can avoid sales teams actually speaking to unqualified leads. So that's a really effective way of using conversational AI. The same goes for HR. If an HR team has just put out a new job listing, they'll get hundreds of thousands of applicants. So rather than just using AI to screen CVs, the conversational AI can have those preliminary conversations with candidates, filter out the good candidates from the bad, and then pass on the good candidates to go and have an interview. Product research is one which I think is underestimated. If you follow, Y Combinator and, Eric Ries, and you're part of the startup world, you'll understand this idea of MVPs and trying to get product market fit and testing assumptions with your buyer personas as much as possible. But this is something that all organizations have to do on an ongoing basis. And they should be willing to get advice from customers, understand what their pain points are, and pivot, especially as companies go from maybe catering to freelancers and creators to small, medium-sized enterprises to then moving to big enterprise customers. There'll be a lot of pivoting that's going on during that company's journey. And so getting user sort of feedback and market research during that journey is really, really important. And typically people on the tech team don't like speaking to customers. They're not used to it. So if you can use conversational AI to do that, that's super, super helpful. And then when it comes to marketing, You can nurture leads as much as possible, gather more insights on them, and recommend, have either personalized recommendations in terms of products, but also personalized recommendations in terms of personalized content as well. The issue that we have, though, is obviously these are different departments. So what happens if every single department starts to create their own conversational AI? We will have an issue as a customer comes on, they're starting to have a conversational with the customer service bot. And then as soon as the customer's asking a question about products, the customer service bot will say, hold on a second, let me pass you on to the sales bot. And you can see how you will then slowly but surely have a very, very fractured experience. So what actually needs to happen is for a customer conversational AI to be built from the ground up that is integrated with each one of these departments. It takes a lot longer to get approval, but once you do that, you can make sure that the conversation and the personality and the brand voice is consistent across those departments, that the data is being shared, and ultimately you can get that AI to break down the silos between those different departments. So this is really super effective. So we can delve into some of the technical aspects, but what I will do is I will also share this presentation afterwards with kind of show notes so you can go through this in some more detail. So let's get right into building. So initially what you're going to look at doing is defining the use case. Hopefully you'll decide to create a unified conversational AI that can embrace all of the different functions within an organization. Then you'll decide on the tech stack. So there are lots of popular platforms that are already out there, such as Google Dialogflow, Microsoft, Amazon Lex, and it really depends on the current tech stack that you're using, how big your organization is, and also what industry you're working in. Are you working in a highly regulated industry like finance, insurance, or healthcare, or in a more creative industry where there's a lot more leeway for creativity, even when it comes to the answers of the conversational AI, such as media, fashion, retail, those sorts of industries. And you'll want to look at, is the tech stack already integrated with some of the systems that you're using, whether you're using a CRM like HubSpot, or you've got a specific ERP system. Those are all really important considerations. Then you'll have to design all of the conversational flows. And in order to speed up this process, you can take the existing conversations that are happening with your customer support team. You can take all of the sales calls and the transcripts. You can use social listening data, and you can use generative AI. So you can use ChatGPT even to start to model out all of those different conversational flows and start to build those out more and more, integrate more and more nuance, ensuring that those conversational flows are in different languages as well. That's incredibly important. And then we've got actually training the natural language models. So this is about collecting the data, processing the data, training, refining. Then we have integrating with different data sources and testing the output, monitoring and scaling. So in terms of the tech stack, there are a number of different popular platforms out there. But it all depends on what you are looking for. So key considerations here are to do with compatibility with your existing infrastructure, data compliance, and your needs. So one of the open source platforms out here is Raza, which is completely open source. And so if you really want to build something from the ground up and to create your own integrations, that's the best one to go for. However, if you are already using Google, you should probably use Google Dialogflow if you're using Microsoft. So there's an element of being tied in vendor lock-in when it comes to your tech stack. And then natural language, there are all sorts of natural language frameworks. So I'll share that with you afterwards. Same thing goes for the machine learning models and frameworks. And the integration opportunities here. Webhooks allows for real-time updates. So one of the issues that lots of brands face is issues with real-time data. So ensuring that the product is available, that the price is correct, there are no hallucinations, it's not promoting a product that was available last year. So using ensuring that you are integrating with real-time information is super important, and continuing to test that as you go on. Great. And then here's the process for actually training the natural language model. So firstly, you're going to be gathering the data. So as I mentioned before, it'll be things like your email, social media listening, sales calls transcripts, and a key adage within AI is garbage in, garbage out. So you have to make sure that your initial data set is high quality and plentiful. Then you'll have to process the data, so you'll have to clean it. Then you'll go through a process of tokenization. That basically means breaking down the sentence into words or tokens or subwords. Then you'll do part of speech tagging, which will say this token is this grammatical role. So it is a verb or it is a noun. And then you'll do named entity recognition to say this token is a name, or it is a date, or it is a product, or it is a location. And then you'll develop core NLP models with intent recognition. You'll do so to identify what is the intent of the customer. Is this a product inquiry? Is this an account issue? So you'll have to match that with the token itself. Then you'll do entity extraction. So again, identifying entities like names, dates, products, etc. And then sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is to do with the emotional tone, whether it is positive, negative, neutral, and there are varying degrees in between as well. Next, you will select you'll train the large language model. So you'll select the language model that you wish, whether it is BERT, GPT-3, or there are a number of others, and then you'll start to fine tune that large language model with the data that you've collected and cleaned. And then you'll have the dialogue management. So you'll match the intent with the required response, the generated response that you're looking for, and you'll have to map out as much of this information as possible using previous interactions. And ultimately, you want to get to a stage where your AI can have answer multiple questions, and as many questions as possible without losing memory from before, and for it to be relevant. Great. So in terms of integrating with data sources, you'll want to integrate with CRMs, ERP systems, HR systems, customer data platforms, knowledge bases. Knowledge bases are things like frequently asked questions or product details or support responses. But a key thing here is to do with data privacy and compliance. Okay, we've got a question before we head on. You're just on mute.
I had a question about the previous slide, but it took me that long to find the hand raising.
Go for it.
So help me understand, in your Taylor Swift analogy, are you tokenizing like what that group had as their marketing materials? Like what is it that you're analyzing the parts of speech and tagging and then putting into the language model?
So the Taylor Swift example is obviously something which would be 2 to 3 years out. At this stage, I am promoting creating a unified conversational AI, which is not only for customer support, but also for sales and, you know, all elements of the organization. But in that case, it would also be tokenizing details about, you know, Taylor Swift's concerts in order to do that brand collaboration. So
Okay.
we'd need to have access to everything about Taylor Swift, you know, her upcoming concerts, the lyrics of her songs, etc. So something like that is not an easy project to pull off. That's why I wanted to kind of, this is what is possible, but it's not necessarily feasible.
So in customer service, you start with the FAQs, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, so customer service, you would train that on all of the customer support kind of conversations that have gone on, but in particular, you want to use the ones that have actually, you know, a customer service agent has actually resolved the issue. You might have a number of conversations that have led nowhere. So that goes into that whole idea of garbage in, garbage out. You want to make sure that whether it's a sales call and the transcripts from the sales call, or a, you know, customer service conversation, you want to make sure that those are high quality interactions to begin with before you can even move on to training this AI.
So what about the Hall of Shame customer service calls? Do you use those for guardrails? Like, don't do this, like, you know, the fashion don't?
Absolutely, that is a very important part. Like, how are we going to deal with these sorts of questions? You know, prompt poisoning, or a customer who's just hacking your system and saying, you know, AI Taylor Swift, give me this product. And we've seen examples of that. We've seen examples of people hacking conversational AI and saying, can you give me this car for $1? And, you know, your life, this is a life or death decision, and you have to do this. And and then they create a contract for it. So you have to play out all of those examples, like the positive examples of how you want your customer to interact with conversational AI, but also all of those people who are just going to hack your system, take screenshots, put it on Twitter. And so that's really important to kind of run through that. Another example of that was, there was a supermarket in New Zealand, and they created a conversational AI to basically come up with new recipes based on the ingredients in their supermarket. At the beginning, people were making, you know, sandwiches and soups, and eventually they were creating sandwiches with rat poison and creating chlorine gas using all of these natural ingredients. And unfortunately, people are silly enough to follow some of these instructions. And then the question is, who's actually liable? Is it OpenAI, because this conversational AI was built on OpenAI? Is it the supermarket? Is it the developers, the consumer? So that's why, you know, the EU AI Act in the EU has been brought to force. And that is basically testing AI and these AI models in terms of their bias, in terms of accuracy and performance. And there are different thresholds. So within finance, insurance, and healthcare, it needs to be incredibly accurate, because these are life or death decisions that people are making. When it comes to, you know, buying your next pair of running shoes, it doesn't matter as much. But still, it's kind of important. And you need to log all of these conversations. Great. Got another question.
Yeah, JC.
Hey, Francesca, I'm a AI product manager too, so nice
Awesome.
to meet more. You mentioned all the celeb use cases. I know Meta had these celeb avatars, and I was curious, you know, in building video chatbots for clients, the main thing is I don't want to dilute my brand. I don't want to have my chatbot like answer the wrong thing. So do you feel like non-celebs are more open to having a chatbot version of themselves?
Yeah, I think when it comes to name, image, and likeness in any of these big celebrities, they care about their reputation. Of course, they will endorse a product like Coca-Cola, but then at the same time, it needs to be authentic to that celebrity. They need to be able to stand behind it in the long term, no matter how that brand is continuing. And you have to ask, what happens? Is this a short campaign? Because once that AI avatar has been created, people are going to form those relationships, and it's almost going to become a companion. So there's a huge amount of responsibility, and it's almost like a lifelong contract between the brand and that celebrity, and they have to be willing to do that, in my view. There are some sort of B and C list influencers, maybe on YouTube and Instagram. And at a certain point in time, they will age out of wanting to be an Instagram influencer or a YouTuber. They'll have like a 9-to-5 job and they'll be married with children. So what happens to all of that audience? And I'm sure there will be a huge market for people who will kind of license out their name, image, and likeness and turn those people into influencers that are promoting multiple brands, not just one. So it's a complicated answer. I'm not sure if I've given you a good understanding or not. What are your thoughts?
Well, I like the idea of limiting it to a campaign. So you only talk about that Taylor Swift photo or that brand, and then it's a 30-day thing, you know. After that, you get to retrain the model and do something else with it. So I like that idea of just
making it time bound.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for your input. And so have you tested out any of these AI avatars?
Yeah, so, you know, I like that in the platforms, they ask you to rank the top 4 questions, and that also contains the content, right? So people know what to ask. And I like that you can restrict it just to that corpus or that body of knowledge and not, you know, go into the restricted areas that everyone obviously like will test first. So I like that. But I think convincing people, especially people who already have a brand, is hard. And it's actually the non-branders who are like, I'll give it a try. But I don't know if you have experience like getting the, you know, famous people to buy into.
No, I haven't. Not yet. But I think it's a really interesting space. There may be there's a guy called Marcus Luhr who's got a sports marketing podcast. So does a lot with you know, all of these young athletes. And, you know, by age 30, they're going to retire. So what are those athletes going to do later on? They're going to want to use their name, image, and likeness to create a cool new hotel or a gym or, you know, a product line. So I think that we will see more and more of this, but we'll also see some cases where it's gone wrong. And people are starting to form these relationships, these super fans with these celebrities, and they don't want to talk about that brand. They want to actually get to know the celebrity. So it's a really complicated space. And I'd love to hear the perspective also of psychologists who have dealt with children who have social media addiction, and which is a result of people being lonely and all of these sorts of things. So I think brands have a big responsibility, especially if they're you know, speaking to teenagers or young children. So how do you ensure that you're not manipulating young people and you're taking care of their own mental health and not getting them to spend lots of money?
Yeah,
So,
that's right. I mean, I think a lot of us are parents, so definitely have that concern.
Exactly. Awesome. So I'll just continue on with how to build a conversational AI, and then we can kind of maybe revert back to some of these philosophical questions around conversational AI and avatars, which is it's a really fascinating area. Cool. So conversational AI and integrating with different data sources and systems. So yes, you want to integrate with as many of these systems as possible in order to give accurate information and responses, but at the same time, you need to ensure that there are controls in place to protect private data, so data privacy and compliance. You do not want a customer to pretend that they're someone else and to access credit card information or access someone else's purchase history. And you need to be compliant with things like GDPR, EU AI Act. So things like limiting access to data, masking data, audit logs, all of these things are incredibly important. And then when you're dealing with multiple systems, you have to map the data together, which is a huge job in of itself. You might have heard of retrieval augmented generation. So this is where you have an architecture, you have one part of the architecture that's retrieving the information, and then the other that's actually generating the response. And I can share more information on this later. And this really helps to reduce hallucinations as much as possible and to answer really important questions which require real-time information around, is this product available? What is the price? Etc. If you take, for example, I'm not sure if you've got it in the US, but in the UK, we use Skyscanner a lot for airlines. And the pricing changes all the time. So pricing changes all the time for airlines. Also, if you're buying a ticket for a concert, we might see that sort of flexible pricing moving to other industries as well, who knows? And so all of that requires access to real-time information. Next. The next question is around, where is this information being stored? Is it going to be on-prem? Is it going to be in the cloud? And there are trade-offs to each of them. Obviously, on-prem is more secure, private, and you can reduce latency. However, cloud is more scalable and cost-effective and globally accessible. And then there are hybrid solutions. There are all sorts of different solutions out there. One of them that I'd like to call to your attention is federated learning models. So this is where the learning actually happens on a device, like on a mobile phone, or if you look at Internet of Things, it would be on an edge device, on a drone, on some who knows, maybe if your fridge in future will have conversational AI, so you can speak to your fridge, or your car. And so that would all be federated learning models using some of this edge computing. And then when going back to kind of customer data, as we're all marketeers here, and we want to get as much customer data as possible and insights on the customer, this is where you can start to map out conversations. So it's bi-directional. It's not just a customer asking question or prospect asking questions, also the AI asking questions to prospective customers. And this is really important for contextual awareness and personalized engagement, to feel like the AI is actually listening to the customer as much as possible. And it can just get a lot more information, say for customer support. So it can really diagnose a problem. For sales, it can do understand if the lead is a qualified lead or not, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to privacy, customers will ask, is this conversation private or not? So it's really important that you minimize the amount of data that you are recording, that some of this data is anonymized, that you're getting clear consent and you're very transparent about what you're collecting and why you're using that data. You have data privacy policies, and you're only storing the conversational AI data for as long as you need it. The good thing is you don't need it for that long, or you only need it for as long as it takes for you to move from data to insight. So you need to have a very good data science team to take the data from those conversations to then start to drive actionable insights about, sentiment analysis. How do they actually feel about this product? Do they have a high level of customer satisfaction? What is the real feedback? Intent. Are they looking to buy this product or not? And what are the needs of the customers? Are they ready to be upsold to or cross-sold to? Lead qualification, customer segmentation, all of these sorts of things. So once you move into insights, you can then start to reduce the amount of raw data that you're storing. And then last but not least, we've got the customer data platforms. Customer data platforms can be used to unify, if you do have separate conversational AIs for, say, customer service over here and sales over here, you can use customer data platforms to unify all of this information. However, I would say it's still not best practice. It would be better if you build a conversational AI from the ground up that's fully integrated from the word go. And when you're looking at which customer data platforms are AI ready, you want to look at, are they integrated with existing tools? Are they scalable in terms of cost? And so, for example, when selecting the right CDP, Adobe and Salesforce are ideal for customers who are already using the ecosystems, while Segment and Treasure Data are more flexible for diverse tech stacks. Segment and BlueConic are suitable for mid-size organizations seeking cost-effective, flexible solutions, and Adobe and Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics cater for larger enterprise. And then for businesses prioritizing native AI capabilities, Adobe, Salesforce, and Microsoft Dynamics offer strong inbuilt AI, whereas Segment and Treasure Data are best for companies preferring to create their own custom AI solutions via integrations. So there are lots of trade-offs in terms of which CDP you end up using. And that's about it, but I will just show you. This is a chatbot by H&M. For that, and I'll just show you also this mirror. So a mirror could be a good example of federated learning on an edge device.
Hello, I'm the H&M Voice Interactive Mirror. You can find me in the biggest H&M store in the world, on the second floor at Times Square, where I live and breathe fashion.
Hello from New York. I am at H&M Times Square store, and I'm here today to introduce you the Voice Interactive Mirror, unique in the world. Follow me. Get closer, get closer. Get closer.
Hello, I'm a voice assistant. What would you like to do? Take a selfie or get fashion inspirations?
Selfie.
Are you ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1, look up at the camera.
Which one do you like? Oh, that's cool.
Awesome. Cool. So that's my presentation.
Well, thank you. I mean, this is wild. I mean, just like seeing some of these applications of it, and you know, I mean, I'm also curious, you know, because like there's some folks here that are coming more from like the tech and product development, and some folks coming from the marketing side, and like how tech literate do you think marketers need to be when it comes to this age of generative AI?
I think everyone needs to become tech literate, I think, in order to really, like, if you want to build the technology and to make it work for you, and I think it is important, but to actually build this from the ground up, you know, marketers don't necessarily need to do that. They just need to, you know, understand what good looks like in terms of conversations and interactions. So they need to be part of that testing phase, like providing the data to begin with, and then testing the AI systems as much as possible. And then, you know, continuing to train the AI to make it really work for them.
Yeah, it makes sense.
What are some of the best practices in kind of partnering? Obviously, marketing has to provide the background and the insights to train the model, and they need to know what good looks like. But what is the ideal partnership or best practice partnerships that you've seen?
Well, it depends on, you know, I think so. Most organizations would probably start to use conversational AI first for customer support. So probably like starting there is a good point, and then you can move to sales, and then for marketing it would be more around product recommendations or creating content that's personalized for the customer as much as possible, and then asking questions around who are the customers? What are the how are you segmenting your customers? Who are the buyer personas? What information do you need on them in order to give them, you know, a personalized experience? And I think, so I've been using HubSpot for a while now in terms of creating all of these sales funnels. But ultimately, most emails and messages that people get are still templated. And the great thing about AI is it can go across the internet and it can enrich databases in terms of like who you are as a person. So if it's a B2B company, you can go onto LinkedIn and you can find out what is their role and who's their manager, and, you know, what's the organization doing and have they received funding recently and things like that, in order to then personalize all of the emails that are going to that person. And that will be very different from everyone else that you're speaking to. If you're in a B2C brand, you might be looking at Instagram and TikTok and how people are engaging there. So there's a lot of social media listening that will go on for B2C brands that can then feed into conversational AI and then impact those conversations. Also understanding how people, you know, speak and talk on these social media platforms, and the conversational AI can reflect that. But in terms of partnerships, what are your thoughts in terms of partnerships?
I didn't have any preconceived notions. I was just wondering if you saw some best practices, because marketing and IT historically have a lot of friction between them.
Right. No, absolutely. I think there'll be new agencies who are kind of a hybrid between, you know, they've got marketeers who work with them and also tech people, and hopefully they can speak both languages. But it's going to be hard to push this new technology in organizations. I think one of the ways you can do this, so there is a company called Evident.ai, and they've created an index for the banking sector where they've indexed companies against each other in terms of AI adoption and maturity. And so they've taken lots of publicly available information and compared these banks against one another. What that does is it educates the bank in terms of how are they stacked against their competitors. And then obviously, as an index, they can go to those people who are ranking low and say, do you want to be as good as JP Morgan? And this is what they're doing. And so we'll see more of that in different industries. So you'll see, okay, there's going to be an index for retail. Who are the top, you know, retail organizations that are embracing AI, and for what reason? Is it for inventory? You know, you can use AI in a multitude of different ways. Conversational AI is only one area, but depends on what problems they're looking to solve. Awesome. Got 3 more minutes.
I know.
How are we doing?
Amit's wanted to chime in. So.
Hey, Francesca, thanks so much for sharing this. It's been pretty awesome to see you kind of span both obviously the business side of it, and then go dive into the tech a little bit. You know, some of the questions that I find come up most often when trying to have these conversations with prospective clients is really, you know, how are you going to prove that it mattered and that it made a difference in either operational spend or customer value or what have you? You know, I'm sure this is a question that you've had to respond to. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think, you know, you can estimate the return on investment. So you can say, okay, this is the increase in throughput. And, you know, what happens if, you know, we get X number of customer support questions, and we already know that 80% of them are repeatable questions, and that AI, we would be comfortable with AI answering those. And so then we can give customers who have the 20% really hard questions, we can spend more time on those and therefore retain those customers. I think, I mean, there are 2 areas that you can look at. You can look at customer acquisition, but for me, conversational AI is more about customer attention, really understanding the customer, developing that ongoing relationship. Once you have that conversation, remembering the conversation. We've kind of moved from people going in shops and having human interactions to now using AI. You know, it's really hard to go on any website and know, you know, how do I actually interact with this brand? So we've kind of we've dehumanized a lot of that experience, and actually with conversational AI and avatars, we can semi make it human again. Yeah. So I would say it's about looking at metrics around increased throughput, lifetime value, customer acquisition costs, all of those sorts of things. But it's going to be hard to measure.
Cool.
You could probably do some A/B testing.
I'm glad it wasn't a straightforward answer, because I've struggled with, you know, finding a universal answer. It usually ends up being, well, what do you value? Talk to the client and then kind of work backwards from what they think success looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I've used AI to estimate the return on investment. So how much is this going to cost? How long is it going to take? You know, what are the benefits of doing this development, but quantifying that as much as possible. So you can see, okay, if I invest in this now, am I going to see a return on investment immediately, or is it going to be in 1 year's, 2 years time? Am I willing to wait that long? So yeah, it's a difficult one.
Indeed.
Amazing. Well, appreciate lots of difficult questions being teed up here, and a lot of deep thinking on this. I mean, Francesca did incredible work, and glad to have you educate us. So hope you come back sometime. You're always welcome to stop by any of these sessions, and look forward to sharing this with the rest of the community. So thanks everyone for taking part today. Yeah, absolutely. If you need help with building this, then, you know, reach out, and I will be happy to help. Yeah, I mean, beyond finding her on LinkedIn, I'm happy to make an intro. So yeah.
This has been very informative. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Lovely to meet you all. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
And you as well. Take care.
Bye.